It's finally done. I have built what I think is the perfect fantasy side, and I'm here to share it with you guys. Welcome back to the Casual Athlete. I'm Longy, former overall champ of NRL Fantasy. We've got Biz here as well, perennial top 100 finisher. How are you doing, mate?
Mate, I'm good. I'm excited to see your team. Quite a few changes from last week, as I expected, but you've stuck true. And I'm loving this hot start from you with the horse, Hosking, and Tamale in your emergencies. That Campbell loop looking excellent. Talk to us about your overall strategy, and then I'll quiz your team.
Yeah, of course. So, probably worth mentioning the loop first here. So, I put Tamale over there in the red spot, emergency six. He's currently the top wing fullback on my bench, so he subs right into that Campbell spot. So, that was always the plan with him. I had a bit of faith in him, but I did want to see him play in Vegas. And, we saw what happened to Casey McLean in that game out up to 3 minutes. So, it's always worth doing a loophole, even with a good player. In terms of the strategy here, I've made a few moves. So, since last time, one of the big moves I made was I've removed Connor Watson from my team. Now, this isn't me saying you have to go remove Connor Watson. I'm not here to crap on Connor Watson. I think he's an ace, but I sort of look at him and he's priced at a 49. He's a 57 average when he starts at hooker. So you've got 8 points of value there. Then you have a little bit of risk there with Docker Clay on the bench. Now, last year he played good minutes with Docker Clay on the bench. So that's not the one thing that's pushing me out. The other thing I consider there is I look at their team, and if there's an injury in the centers or an injury, in the outside backs or in the halves, Connor Watson's probably the guy that slides into those positions. And that's where I really worry because, guys like Mark Nawani Tawase haven't played a ton of first grade footy. Rob Toya's coming back from injury as well. They've got a few guys who are injury concerns. So I reckon at some point, Connor Watson will slide into another position and that PPM will drop right off. So that's where I'm sort of looking at it. I'm thinking, you know what? He's going to come out and pump 60 points round one. I'm fairly confident of that. But at some point, he'll hurt coaches with a 35. And if you're priced at 50, can't afford that. Whereas a Tom Gilbert, he's priced at 37. He should average about 47. So not as sexy, but 10 points of value, which is a slight uptick in value. And it allows me to make a move on the bench where I can take, a Kelma Tuolangi type of player, Kobe Hetherington, one of these guys, and turn them into Cam Munster. Now, the justification on Cam Munster is, obviously he's a stud. He's averaged 60 plus in the past, priced at a 44. But when I saw that Parramatta team list, my hopes for Parramatta went down the drain. And I thought, I need to have something to watch in that game. And if Cam Munster is going to tear us apart, then I want to be a part of it in terms of fantasy production.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I mean, you already have Harry Grant up the front, and he always dominates Parrot even when they're at full strength. So could be a scary proposition this week. In fact, if you had known the team list and there wasn't a Vegas concept, would you have been tempted to captain Harry Grant this week?
Oh, that's pretty wild. I would have thought about it, but he had a few low base games last year, so probably couldn't do it.
Okay, well, I mean, some of the changes, I'll talk about some of the key changes you've made. You've kind of gone off Kobe Hetherington. You've brought on Gilbert. I want to talk about Gilbert a bit because a lot of interest. He's since now been named captain. He's come out in an article saying that he is not expecting to play 80 minutes, but he was happy to play 80 minutes if the coach needs him to. So it sounds like he's ready to handle the big minutes, but what are you kind of expecting from him? You've kind of pivoted to him. You've been pretty high on him the last few days.
Yeah, historical numbers are a 47.5 average in 58 minutes. I don't really see him going below 55 minutes as their captain. So I'm penciling him in for 47 and he's priced at 37. So 10 points of value is plenty there for me in the middle forward spot. But I don't think he has the high ceiling. So I'm not penciling him in for a 55 average or, anything like that. So I think temper expectations. But the other thing I'm looking at here too is the dual position as well. So I'm not super flush with edge back rowers in my team. So I kind of need someone who can slide into that edge back row spot if, there's an injury there. And it just means that I can replace them with a middle forward or an edge as opposed to being stuck with an edge replacement.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add on Gilbo is he's extremely young. I think he's 24, 25 or so. So his PPM should be on the way up. He's kind of entering his prime. Most people would say as a middle forward, your prime is kind of in your mid to late 20s versus, some backs and halves start really well. I will add on Gilbo is that he played about 30 minutes straight in the trial and he scored 26 odd points. So an excellent PPM off the bat. So if he's getting the 60-minute mark as captain, I don't see a reason why he can't average 50. I think he'll build up to that. He's not in my team currently, but he's been kind of in and out. So I think that's a great pick. I think, look, Hosking and Horsburgh, you don't have to talk about. They've already played. Angus is an interesting one. You're one of very few. What's his ownership percentage right now? Surely in the low single digits.
It's pretty low. I think he gets a few buys from people who aren't really into fantasy, but just know he's a big name player. So amongst genuine fantasy coaches, it's very low. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
with
what
him, yeah.
I was going to say that, are you not worried by the lackluster Roosters preseason performance, or do you really see that they've got experience across the board, couple of in terms of winning games? They're usually one of the teams that are better. I know they've lost a lot of talent, but is this a case where you think Angus takes up a lot of the attacking responsibility with all the kind of threats out wide? Joseph Manu, Suoli'i out, he becomes the focal point of the attack.
Yeah, so I'll be straight up. I think the Roosters will be rubbish this year. I think it's going to go bad early and it's going to get worse as the year goes on. I don't think Gus Crichton is affected by it that much. So, I mean, obviously, he's not a guy I want to own through the origin period. The Roosters have really bad buys through that period. So, he won't be in my team for the mid-season. But for the first, 12 weeks, I look at him as a guy who he's going to rock up round one. They're going to be a bit frustrated in attack compared to previous years. And we're going to see him crab running across the field, throwing offloads, looking to attack. He went from dummy half a few times in the trial game. I saw enough out of that, even though the fantasy production wasn't good. I saw enough in his intent where he was just playing. If you've played mixed odds, say, before, or mixed touch footy, those guys who just go for the cheap tries. Gus will be doing that this year as much as he can, right? So I just think he's going to grab some cheap tries and some big attacking plays. And there'll be a few quiet games here and there, but the upside's huge. He'll play 80 minutes. And the other part of it is I look at the Broncos matchup round one, and yeah, it's not a good matchup for the Roosters to win. But I don't really care who he's up against in terms of their edges, because Adam Reynolds, Ben Hunt are two guys who, they're in their mid-30s. They're not noted defenders. You got Jezewski or Ricky. Hopefully it's Jezewski. And then you've got a center pairing of Dean Mariner and, Shibasaki. So again, two quite fragile defenders. So Gus Crichton in that game, as much as I don't tip the Roosters to win, will have plenty of chances to barrel over dudes. And they're going to have to try to stop him, because if they don't, he's going to score a couple of tries in that one.
Yeah, Angus did look like also that he wasn't really putting in his top efforts in the trial. And, he's an experienced veteran with a lot of rep experience as well. So he's kind of getting minutes in. So I wouldn't look too much into the preseason performance. I agree with you. Just on the Angus pick, some other key players at that price point. I've gone Hopgood myself currently, very similarly priced. Looking at the Parramatta bench, give me a quick 30-second comparison on Angus versus Jermaine and why you've gone Angus. Are you kind of just thinking that Jermaine's preseason interrupted, question marks with the new coach?
Yeah, they both have that ceiling in the 60s. They could both do it. If I had 5 teams, 3 of them would have Hopgood probably. He's a pretty exciting option, but he just doesn't make this side here. The injury heading into the year. So for him, for a Payne Haas as well, there's a few of these guys where I really like them, but I'm just trying to avoid players who are carrying injury cloud into the season. So I know I've done Hosking there, but the Hosking upside at that price is just too much to ignore for me. But yeah, for a guy like Hopgood, I probably won't want to overlook that injury history. And Madison on the bench is a bit worrying as well. I think Parramatta will get dusted up by the Storm, so maybe he gets a bit of a rest. You don't know what's going to happen with the new coach. Preston's probably the other one to talk about. So I've always been Gus Crichton over Preston, but I do respect the Preston upside massively as well. Bit dicey with the bench the Dogs have named, though. So Tupanua and Salmon are both guys who could steal edge minutes, but they could also play some sort of middle role. Yeah, you never really know what's happening there. But I think one of Kikau or Preston will get a rest each week. And I don't know if it's going to be consistent week to week. So for me, Gus Crichton's very safe. Obviously, the team situation is the risk there, but I'm backing him to overcome it.
Yeah, he's kind of done the performances of 60 plus before, so he's got the track record. On your halves, I don't want to touch on Vegas too much. We'll be forward looking, but just quickly, good signs from Cleary in terms of 600 plus kick meters. Assume you're not worried about him. A lot of people parading Yo over Cleary. Now, I own both, but I'm much more excited about Cleary with 600 kick meters and still scoring 56 versus Yo try and 68 points. So are you pretty happy being a Cleary owner this year?
Yeah, the comment section was funny on my last video. A lot of Yo owners, very graceful, very humble in their bragging on their 68-point player. I'm pretty happy not owning Yo. I'm all good with it. Horsburgh went fine. Terrell May and Gilbert, I'm sure they'll do a job. But for Cleary, yeah, he did all the kicking, right? So we saw 21 kick meters out of Jack Cole. We saw next to nothing out of the fullback and hooker there as well. So it's like a 95% kick meter split. Compared to Luai last year, that's fantastic. And Cleary went close to the 40-20. He went close to a few nice attacking stats as well, like the try. This very easily could have been an 80-point game from Cleary, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. So I'm not worried about it. He'll be my captain next week, and the week after that, and the week after that, and the week after that, and the week like he's just the guy, right? And Nico Hines has fallen off completely. So there's really no competition for Nathan Cleary.
Yeah, I think it was very encouraging. Completely dominated playmaking. And on the flip side, won't go too far into it. We've already covered in another video, but Metcalf, you're not panicking about him.
The role was fine. He did more kicking than his halves partner. He played pretty rough in a rough Warriors performance. A lot of negatives, missed tackles, errors. It'll come together for him, right? Unless you think the Warriors are going to be that bad every week, I wouldn't panic.
Yeah, I think he got more kick meters than I expected. He got better than the role that people wanted. So I think there's no reason to panic on him after one game. Toya, Lucas, Marzu, Iongi, and Jaden Campbell. Interesting back five. A couple of pods here. Look, I think Toya's a simple one. 45 odd reserve average in reserves. Base price, you have to have him. Lucas, I think, is simple, 57 odd average when playing second row. He's penned in there for 80 minutes this year. I want to talk about, though, Marzu, especially at the back, and Jaden Campbell. So you've gone for Marzu here. You haven't gone Ponga, who's a very popular Knights back. Are you not worried with the kind of half situation? I know Cogger is a bit of a dominant half at times, but Sharp doesn't kick at all. Are you not worried that Ponga is threatening to break the game open with his normal kind of base stat? Or sorry, I said base stats, but what I mean his normal game plus new kick meters on top. You're not too worried about him potentially averaging 60 plus?
The tough part there is with roster configuration, I probably only want one elite wing fullback in my team. So I'm a big Ponga fan, and there were parts of this preseason where Ponga was in my team. Very rarely did I have Ponga and Campbell in this team, though. I tried it a couple of times. I just didn't like the way it looked. If we got Jack Bird starting, which also Jack Bird might find his way back into my team before round one, by the way. I'm just going to put that on. But if we had Jack Bird starting, I might consider going Lucas to Jack Bird and Marzu to Ponga. But we don't really have that reliability at center, so I'd rather just plug in an underpriced keeper gun in Dylan Lucas there, and that uses up too much cash for me to get Ponga as well. If Tamale went terribly, because Tamale is my loophole for Campbell, then I probably would have swapped Campbell for Ponga. I think they're really that close. I just think Campbell has a little bit more upside, and as long as Tamale scored serviceably, which for me was about 40, I would say is that marker, I was going to keep Campbell there. So with Campbell, I think you've got the same upside there as that Ponga upside, but a stronger set of base stats, a stronger set of kick meters, probably a little bit less attacking upside, but a Titans team that I expect to really lean on Jaden Campbell.
Yeah, and on Jaden Campbell, is there any chance he could turn into a Hines-like player? If he dominates the kick meters, we've seen the running game, he kicks goals, he's in a team that should be better in attack. Can you see a world where he averages 70 this year?
There's a world, we were chatting about this the other day in our private chat. I think it was you who asked, who's your smoky pick for top average in fantasy this year? And my smoky pick is Jaden Campbell, 100%. Like, he totally has the tool set and the equipment required to be the top scorer in fantasy. Now, it would require Cleary to fall off in some way, right? Because no one can match Cleary. But if there's going to be some other smoky to pop up, he's got everything there. So I guess it depends on the kick meter split, though. It looks like right now it's about a 50-50 kick meter split between him and Brimson. If that starts skewing more towards Jaden Campbell and the attacking players to come together, it's an all-origin forward pack for the Titans as well. Like, if that comes together, then yeah, totally. He could pump out a PB, the best wing fullback average we've seen in fantasy. Like, he has that potential, 100%.
Yeah, I will say in 2 games at 5'8" last year, AJ Brimson, he was partnered with Foreign, yep. 661 kick meters and 390 kick meters. So average about 450, 500 kick meters there. If Jaden Campbell even gets 75% of that, he averaged 55 odd with only 150 kick meters. That's 10 points on that. He could average 65. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Yep. I'm saying that the opportunity is there.
Goal
Interesting
kicking's
backfire.
great too, especially if
Yep,
they're a
goal
better
kicking.
team.
I mean, yeah, if they're look on paper, they should be a much better team this year. Cam Munster, look, he
Yep.
wasn't in your team last week. He's made it back in. Has Metcalf's performance last week given you the confidence to go out and spend up on a half? Because I think the general consensus last week was there's so many cashy halves this year. Do we really need to go out and pay up for a Munster or a Luai? I'm guessing that Metcalf's performance didn't you give you the confidence to run him as a starting half, and has that weighed into your decision here?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So I looked at this, and we had a lot of options playing in Vegas, basically. So with Metcalf, I'm going to keep Metcalf as long as he's starting. Right, the fantasy case is still there; it's still strong, but the gamble there is the Warriors are absolutely dreadful, and they've bought in Tanner Boyd. They've got Tamari Martin there. They've got a lot of options, basically. So I couldn't say with certainty that Metcalf won't get dropped if he keeps playing like that. So I personally am trying not to rely on him too much. Like he'll still be in my 17, but I'm a little iffy about that. And then Jack Cole was okay. He ran some nice sweep plays. He had some attacking stats in there, but 29 points, no kicking at all. He's gonna have to fix up that stat profile and sort of find some attacking stats to be worthwhile. So with them, I sort of thought, okay, they're probably not really super reliable guys for my 17 week to week. So I can, which I wanted to all preseason. We were talking about it a lot, and I wanted Cam Munster. I just couldn't find a way to do it. And now I took the excuse with Connor Watson. His Zach Docker on the bench, downgraded him to Gilbert, and just rushed my way to Munster. And I've sort of kind of made all those reasons fit what I wanted to do rather than doing the Munster move as a result of all those reasons. So it's kind of something I was already leaning into and just waiting for a reason to do. The other side of it is the team list pair I've named, man. Like it's an understrength Parramatta side, and I think they're going to get absolutely pounded by the Storm. So, I still think Para, if they can get Moses back soon, can get it together and make the finals this year. But round one against Melbourne, full strength, their full spines in there could be dangerous. And Munster's probably going to be one of the guys that does tear up there. I guess another option you can consider, and one that I have pondered slightly, is Ryan Pappenhausen. So 530K, I think he'll tear up in that game too. But it's the last game of the round. He's under an injury cloud. If he's out from that game, and you got him starting at wing fullback, then you have to swap for, who? Like Nick Meaney, maybe a para player. Like there's not a lot of wing fullback options after that.
Jake
So
Tungo, baby.
it's not great, man. But you could maybe have Pappenhausen on the bench and then swap him to Munster. But I prefer Munster over Paps anyway. So yeah, there's a few things to look at there. But I just like the upside of Munster is really the core answer.
Yeah, I like it. And if he's running towards Kelmer, Kautunga didn't make the side, but Jack Williams is a pretty solid defender, but I think Munster could have a big game. Duffy, I think, is a straightforward one. Mamazoulas as well. Sandon Smith, again, pretty similar. Stoked with Tamale. I don't think we need to cover him, but he's locked into that spot. I mean, especially with Savage getting suspended, he's there for a couple more weeks. Hubner, is it Hubner or Hubner? Starting lock. He's beat out Tallis Duncan, who was in your team last week. Easy downgrade. I mean, as a Duncan owner, you're probably happy that you don't have to worry about that one. You can just downgrade Duncan to Lachlan over here, and then just pocket the cash somewhere else. Are you expecting a lot of minutes for him? What kind of role are you expecting?
Yeah, just on Hubner, I actually did downgrade Duncan to Hubner like 10 minutes after we recorded that team reveal last time.
Yeah.
So I went Duncan down to Hubner, and I went Hetherington up to Gilbert. Sorry, Hetherington up to Horsburgh. That's how I've got Horsburgh in the team now.
That's beautiful.
So yeah, I made that move pretty quick, just sort of after researching it more. And yeah, but for Hubner, I've got him on the NPR spot, right? I just worry a bit. Duncan is on that bench. They're playing Arrow on the edge, and Arrow's going to eat up a bunch of edge minutes. Like I would rather see Arrow in the middle forward prop rotation and see Duncan on the edge. That would make me more confident in Hubner. But the way it stands right now, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to score well from round one. I just think, Bennett's brought him across. Like he's one of those guys that Bennett likes. Like I've heard good things about him. I don't know heaps about him, if I'm going to be completely transparent. But as a fantasy coach, I see 250K. I see starting lock. And I see a guy who's won that spot as a result of form over someone else who was a contender. And I think, yep, that's a good option. The other thing I think about there is Ewan Aitken will come back in about round 4. So when Aitken comes back, Arrow might move back to lock. So that's one thing to consider, that Hubner might not be a prime scorer for a long time. But again, at that price point, covering middle forward, I like him better than I like Royce Hunt or, who else have you got? Like Halasima. Like there's not really any other options at middle forward. So he's the one that we got to take a dice roll on and just hope that he finds a role and sort of puts up some numbers for us.
Yeah, look, I think despite the cloud of who's playing where when Aitken comes back, who's apparently ahead of schedule, I think, look, the starting lock position is generally pretty good. I can only think of a handful of bad starting locks, and Kai O'Donnell brings to mind when he played at the Raiders. I think he came on for 20 minutes, scored 19, never saw him again.
Not safer last year.
No, not safe. No, Seyfarth is a beast this year. We know that.
Last year, he started at lock, mate. What did you score? Like 7?
12. I don't know. Something ridiculous. Last year. And then Purdue. I mean, you were off him last week, but I think a lot of expected cashies from last week dropped out. I think Stafford Toa's injured this week. Kiyono Katoga is presumably injured this week. So quite a few center cashies have gone out the window. So I assume you could just plug in Purdue here for the upside.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a few centers that I wanted over him, but he's in there. I was chatting to a Cowboys fan as well, and they were sort of saying, I've probably got to confirm this before we start round one, but they were saying that he's going to play in the Val Holmes role as opposed to the other side where he played last year. So that's going to be more appealing, and that's why we saw those attacking plays in the trial game. So whether that's true, I'm just going to confirm that. But yeah, Purdue should be fine. I mean, look, he's 250K, right? So I'm not going to say no to a guy who's a starter at 250K. I do need the center cover as well, because if Toya gets dropped, then Tamale probably subs into that center spot. But Purdue then becomes the next first drop. And, so Tamale can move into the wing fullback spot as well if he needs to. And then I'd need Purdue as well. So I think a bit of depth in the back line is a good thing with all the halves I'm carrying as it stands.
I want to pull you up on that statement that you can't resist a starting player at base price, because I'm not seeing Lord Jack Kazewski in your team. Can you explain that? Or where is he?
Kazewski. He's the one holding out our new mascot for this year, Brennan Piakura. That's going to come through on Buy, Hold, Sell. We'll do a deep dive in his stats each week. But look, Kazewski, there's just so many reasons not to buy Kazewski. So if you're buying Kazewski, you kind of have to plan for how to sell a guy who's 230K. And I say 230K very intentionally, even though he's starting at 250, because I think he'll go down in value. For him, I looked at the numbers. I actually did a deep dive on this. So he averages 28 when he gets like 4 minutes starting. When he plays 40 to 60 minutes, I think it was, his average is like 16 points. So if you give him 40 to 60 minutes and Piakura comes on, you're looking at an average that's below his break even with a 19-point break even. So he's going to drop cash. Like there's nothing in it. I mean, Jordan, like Ricky and Piakura are the better back rowers, and they're going to be the starters at some point pretty soon.
I didn't want to open that can of worms, but I was asking jokingly. But now you have it. Don't get Jack Kazewski. I better go change my team before my reveal, because he was in it. No, I'm kidding. He wasn't. But look, Longy, I think you've built a great roster here. Standard Longy team, a lot of upside, couple of pods. It's been a good start for you. Is there one player in particular that you love owning over someone else? I would suspect it's a guy like Harry Grant or Angus, but what are your thoughts, and who are you least confident with, and is there any positions you're still tinkering with?
I love the idea of having Cam Munster as a pod. I like Harry Grant as a pod. I think these guys are a bit disrespected right now, and everyone's sort of forgetting that Harry Grant was equal averages with Isaiah Yeo 2 years ago, right? He's not getting that respect right now, which is fine. They got the buy in round 2, so that makes them pods. So those two, and I'm excited about Greg Marzhew. I think we're just going to see him tick up some really easy sort of mid-40s scores this year with the occasional pop game. And, have a few quiet ones. He's a winger, right? But I'm excited about having Marzhew. One guy that I am really iffy about is actually Isaiah Yongi. So no Mitch Moses in the team, up against a very strong Melbourne side. I'm not hopeful for Parramatta. And if I could find a way to reconfigure my team that I somehow benched Yongi, I would really think about doing it. Like for example, if I had Ponga instead of Campbell and Tamale hadn't played yet and I'd seen these team lists, I probably would have played Tamale over Yongi and left Yongi on the bench. So I don't think he's going to score big this week, but I'm not going to tear my team apart on that hunch.
Yeah, I don't think Yongi is. Look, I'll be surprised if he cracks 40 this week against a very tough Melbourne team down in Melbourne versus their record. So, look, other than that, do you think this is your final team or any more changes to come?
Is there ever a final team?
No.
Look, I might do something with Gilbert to Seyfarth. Seyfarth is a better stat case than Gilbert, but a worse job security case because he's not club captain, right?
Yeah, and a worse talent for sure.
Yeah. So I'm considering that. I might not stick with Munster. I'm playing around with that round 2 buy. So for right now, as it stands, round 2 would require me to bring Tamale into the team and bring Hubner into the team to cover for Harry Grant and Cam Munster because Mamazel's going to the starting spot, of course. So that leaves me a little bit shallow, but I think I'm willing to do it because I'm going to be making trades anyway next week. So it's worth considering. Otherwise, yeah, I do think this is pretty final. But at the same time, I've changed my team moments before round 1 every year, and I'll probably do it again this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, even late changes, like an hour before team lists are finalized. Like, look, Corey Horsburgh only made it into my side half an hour before kickoff. Same with Tom Starling. So I'm sure there's changes come. But look, Longy, I think you've put together a great team. I'm loving the depth. I'm loving the selections. You've had a good start. All the best this year. Hopefully you can back up your long track record of success. And look, I'm excited for the review after this round and to see how you're feeling about it. But so far, the signs look good.
Cheers, Biz. And it's a good segue too. We'll jump into your team. Tom Starling headlining it too, guys, but we'll jump to that one next. Anyway, everyone, thanks for jumping on. That's my team reveal, hopefully final for round 1. Let us know who you're jumping on to and keen to hear about all your pods. We'll see you guys in the next video.